just a reminder, we have a few minutes for questions for Ray, and Kathy and I will try to field those if you do have a question or two. I want to remind you that Ray will be in the exhibit area signing pictures, boxing, as well as talking about the sport that he loved and has been a part of. So there's a chance to talk one-on-one with him following this at times in the exhibit room. Otherwise, he's part of this conference like you are and will be attending today. So are there any questions? Okay, give me a minute to get over there.
Quick and easy question. Can I come up and get a hug?
Absolutely, I'd be honored. I'd be honored.
Now, we have a question over here.
Could you go over?
And Ray, we have a question over here about education. I'm over here.
Hi, could you go over and explain education and what you're doing to help students go back into school and what processes and stuff?
Okay, well, the education is first when I speak to, I not only speak to athletes, it's not about athletics, it's about any student can fall off of a bicycle or a skateboard. And they have to remember that if they get that bang on the head, they have to report it and get it taken care of. And the education as far as school, now that is left up to the school system to implement their own program that will help a student who has been concussed gradually get back to the classroom, because, you know, a concussion is different for everybody. And they all vary, and we all need some personalized help. And if it starts out with maybe a half a day of school for a week, that's the route that should be taken to make sure that they can catch up reasonably with the class when they've been healed. Have I answered that for you? Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Ray? All right, I'm headed that way. Where's that hand again? Right there, okay.
I really admire your dedication to your sport, but I wonder, you know, because when you're 16, you don't have the hindsight you have now, and I'm wondering what, if anything, someone could have said to you back then that would have caused you to say, wait a minute, I shouldn't go to that next match. I mean, what could someone say that would have changed your mind?
That is such a great question. And that's the key. That's what drives me to do what I do today. I'm not Carmen Basilio, and I don't perceive to be. Okay, but if a Carmen Basilio back in my day were to tell me, Ray, you got to work hard, but if you get that bang to the head, you better address it, I probably would have listened. But we didn't have anybody because they didn't know. But now we know, and that's my message, is I endorse playing every sport as hard as you can play. But the key is you get your bell rung, have it addressed properly, you'll come back another day. You challenge it, and I'm your example.
All right, I'll
Thank
right
you.
there. Question over here. Excuse me.
Do you happen to know if there's anything in the works to regulate MMA, fighting concussions?
I'll tell you, MMA is a very good organization, and they watch it very carefully. They're very well monitored, but again, on a rough sport like that, like boxing, the object is to hit to the head and render your opponent unconscious. You get rewarded for that. That's the name of the sport. But they keep a very close eye on symptoms and regulations for return. See, I didn't realize that EEG test back in 1971, boxing was ahead of other sports. They had an idea that the head trauma was taking its toll. But that test was there to make sure that, I took a rest, which I didn't do, and let the concussion heal, and that my return would be safe by having a clear exam. Well, the MMA, along with boxing now, have stringent tests. In fact, I think the suspension is 120 days now for anybody that looks like they took a severe beating, let alone a knockout. So they're way ahead of the game.
And Ray, what is MMA for some of us?
MMA is
Mixed martial arts.
mixed martial arts,
Okay,
okay.
mixed
It's in the
martial arts.
cage that you see on television, okay, yeah.
Got a question over here.
I don't know, but related to her question about what would it have taken for you to not make that decision? You were 16,
16, yeah.
all right, and very obviously your parents could have forbidden you. Okay, I did this, I made this same mistake when I was older, when I was about 35. And as a 35-year-old male, nobody could legally tell me what to do. I got in a car accident and got a fractured skull, like up frontal socket. And the hospital released me. They said I needed to go to Harborview and get a steel plate put in. I went to Harborview and they said they had to cut my face off and do all this. And I was like, you know what? Bones heal in 6 weeks. It's like a broken arm, right? I just want to hit my head for 6 weeks. I'll be fine. It'll heal. So they released me. They had to. That's how the law is. There was nothing to stop them. If I was making decisions at probably the worst point in my life, and I was making them by myself, and they were very poor decisions. And so a week later, I got in a car accident and put my head through the windshield, which was already fractured and not repaired. So the second head accident within a week period, eventually they told me that you get some pretty specific symptoms from that are different than a one-time head injury, that you really should avoid it, etc. And I played football in high school, much experience with getting my bell rung, with that. It was a matter of waiting for the ringing to stop and then we would go back. It wasn't wait a week. But I was also underage, and the coach could always say, you cannot play. But once I was 35 and a male, nobody could tell me to stop. And I'm just wondering if there's some kind of test they can make in the ER, the hospital, that just right away says, you can't drive from here, you can't do this, you can't do that, you need legal advice before you make another medical decision.
Okay, yeah, that's a very good question, and in New York State, similar to the law you have in Washington here, prohibits someone that's been diagnosed with that concussion to return to play without a physician's licensed physician's permission. But again, it goes back to home. I had a wonderful family, but they were too busy. I was kind of unsupervised. They were very busy with the family business, and sometimes that happens. And so home supervision is very important. Those decisions, I stress that very much about family life.
Did you? I'm not as a criticism against
No, I
But
understand.
once you're older and there is no legal person to stop you,
Well,
nobody ever told me about this. Two head injuries in a week.
well, that was back then.
This was 4 years ago.
Oh, well, we're getting better then. We're getting better, and the best you can do is be a good example, be a good role model to make sure nobody else goes through and makes that mistake. Bless you.
Well, we're getting better, but I think the insurance companies are the best. And then they don't admit anything. So then we just kind of play the game. But anyway, that's not my point. Did you experience, or as a first or second symptom, personality changes?
That was the biggest eye-opener that nobody knew. I was a high honor student and never had any problems, and then after that second impact, I became angry. I had a disdain for any authority, be it a police officer or teacher. But don't get me wrong here, I have complete admiration and respect for that today, but at the time, you know, it messed my head up. And personality change, yes, please look for that. That's a big sign. When that personality changes, that's telling you we have a candidate here.
So did you have to learn the whole issue of anger? Did you have to, I mean, how did you deal with that, the changes?
I didn't. I had to suffer through it. Okay, but now today it's help. Get the help. The professionals are there to help you. Get the help, and you'll be fine.
I think one more question, and then we'll break and get ready for the break, and then go to our breakout.
Ray, the one issue I think that has kind of become clear is you've got young kids, 16, 18-year-old kids, that their only way out of a lifestyle that's either going to turn really bad or have no future is athletics. And that was my case. And I'm like you, I've had a lot of problems, but I would do it all over again for the positive benefits. And people have to realize that young people especially, even once you get out of college into pros, you're still a young person, you're in your 20s, and this is your future. And so you do try to hide it. I'm not a proponent of government intervention. I think we got too much of it. But there is, in this case, I think there are things coming into play in place now to protect people from themselves, athletes mainly, but even other people. In the late 60s, when I was playing college, they started to make us wear mouth guards. Not, we thought, because they wanted to keep our teeth in and not fix our teeth. They knew then that there was a problem, kids getting hurt. So they've known it. I just think that it's been a long time coming, just what the actual effects of this are. But these young kids, they're not going to listen unless somebody tells them, because their future is potentially too great.
You know, I have a lot of help at home, and I need it. And the many emails and letters and phone calls that I receive from athletes thanking me for the message, that's where it's at, education, and that's what keeps me driving. It's the education, and once they realize that all they need to do is rest a little bit, it's not the end of their career, they'll listen.
I know there are more questions. We're at the time where we need to take a break, and I want to thank Ray and Scott Bloom on our committee selected Ray and encouraged us to choose him, and I am very thankful because it's a very powerful message. For those of you who didn't get your question asked, remember Ray will be available in the exhibit room or throughout the conference, so you can tackle it that way. Those of you in the